What if I told you that the worst betrayal you've ever experienced wasn't just an accident? It wasn't confusion. It wasn't weakness. It was a calculated strike crafted by the darkest part of someone's personality. And what if I told you that Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychological minds in history, uncovered something so disturbing about betrayal, it could change the way you see every relationship in your life? Because what you're about to hear isn't just theory. It's not speculation. It's a map of the human psyche drawn in shadows. And by the time we're finished, you'll understand why some people aren't just capable of hurting you. They're wired for it. Let's begin. The shadow is not confusion, it's design. When someone hurt you deeply intentionally, you might have tried to make sense of it. Maybe you told yourself they didn't mean to. They were going through something. They didn't know any better. But Jung's research tells a different story. He warned us this wasn't confusion. This wasn't an emotional slip. This was the shadow. And when the shadow acts, it doesn't act blindly. It doesn't lash out in chaos. It calculates. According to Carl Jung, the shadow is the hidden repressed side of our psyche, the part that contains all the parts of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge: envy, cruelty, selfishness, rage, and cold manipulation. And when someone's shadow takes control, Jung said it doesn't just lash out in hatred, it makes decisions, strategic ones. And if they hurt you intentionally, that was not a moment of weakness. That was a moment of psychological clarity for them. Because here's the terrifying truth Jung uncovered: the dehumanization process when you're erased. According to Jung, when the shadow acts with intention, it reveals something far more chilling than simple dislike. It means the person has in their mind psychologically erased your humanity. Let that sink in. They don't just dislike you, they've redefined you. You are no longer a person in their inner world. You are now a concept, an obstacle, a target, an object. Jung called this process devaluation, and it's one of the most dangerous stages in the psyche. Because once someone completes the devaluation process, they now have a moral framework, a self-justified belief system that says you deserve this. You brought this on yourself. You're not real in the way I am. And when someone no longer sees you as a human being with emotions, memories, and dignity, there is no limit to what they can do. The dangerous power of contempt. Jung identified contempt as one of the most lethal emotional states in human psychology. Not anger, not hatred. Contempt. Why? Because contempt is not emotional chaos. It is moral permission. It's the moment someone looks at you and no longer sees a soul. They see an irritant, a thing. Jung warned that contempt creates moral distance, a chasm in the mind that makes cruelty not just possible but justified. And once that internal narrative sets in, cruelty feels righteous. It feels necessary. This is what makes psychological abuse so insidious. It's not random, it's rehearsed. The narrative that justifies abuse. The human psyche cannot commit intentional harm. Jung wrote without first creating elaborate justifications. Read that again. This means the shadow doesn't just act. It builds stories, entire internal narratives that rationalize the harm. These stories sound like they're weak. They had it coming. This will teach them a lesson. I'm doing what needs to be done. Jung called this process shadow justification. It's how people convince themselves that they're not the villain. You are. And these stories don't emerge in the moment of conflict. They begin forming long before the first betrayal. They are crafted as tools, as weapons. Manipulation, the shadow's most calculated betrayal. But the most chilling part, according to Jung, manipulation is the shadow's most dangerous and calculated form of betrayal. Why? Because it doesn't lash out. It studies. It plans. Jung said manipulators engage in something he called shadow projection. They watch your behavior, analyze your words, your vulnerabilities, but not to understand you, to weaponize you. Imagine that. The very things you shared in trust, your fears, your doubts, your wounds, are filed away like data points. And when the time is right, they're used against you. Jung observed that this manipulation follows a very predictable pattern. It starts with subtle reality distortion. That didn't happen. You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. 2, then comes boundary testing, small violations, emotional push-pull. 3, if you don't resist, the process deepens. Your sense of reality begins to crumble. 4. Eventually, you question your own mind. Maybe it is my fault. Maybe I am the problem. And that's exactly where they want you. Jung didn't mince words here. This is not accidental. It is the shadow exercising its highest level of control. When they go for your core, targeted destruction. Now, here's where Jung's insight becomes truly haunting. He discovered that when someone harbors real malice toward you, when their shadow is in full control, they don't attack you randomly. They don't hit you where you're strong. They don't go for surface-level wounds. They go for the core. Jung called these your core complexes, the emotional and psychological structures that give your life meaning. Your values, your dreams, your identity, your deepest emotional foundations. The shadow, Jung said, instinctively knows that to truly harm a person, you must strike where it matters most. If you value love, they give you abandonment. If you value honesty, they offer convincing lies. If you live by loyalty, they betray you at the most intimate level. This is emotional precision, and its goal is devastation. Privileged destruction. Why strangers can't do this? Here's the part that might break your heart. Strangers can wound you, but only someone who knows you intimately can systematically destroy you. Jung called this privileged destruction when the shadow uses intimate knowledge as ammunition. Think about it. The people who know your story, the ones who've seen you vulnerable, the ones you let into your inner world, are the only ones who can twist that world until it collapses. And when the betrayal comes from them, it doesn't just hurt, it redefines you. The aftermath, when you question reality itself. Jung observed that the victims of this kind of shadow abuse don't just suffer pain, they suffer disorientation. They begin to question their own thoughts, their memories, even their sense of self. Because the betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was existential. When someone who once cherished you now harms you with precision, your brain tries to make sense of it, but there is no logic, only shadow. And in that confusion, in that silence, in that aching uncertainty, Jung said we begin the process of internalizing the betrayal. We start to believe we deserved it, but you didn't. And this is why understanding the shadow is so important, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Ending. Your power is in awareness. So what now? What do you do with this knowledge? First, recognize the pattern. Understand that betrayal, manipulation, and emotional cruelty often come wrapped in charm, silence, or even false concern. Second, reclaim your truth. If someone intentionally harmed you, erased your humanity, targeted your values, used your dreams against you, that was not love. That was their shadow. And finally, protect your psyche. Because once you know how the shadow works, you stop blaming yourself. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to repair. And you start seeing clearly. Carl Jung didn't just study the shadow. He wanted us to face it, to expose it, and to never let it control us again. So the next time someone hurts you and says, "It was just a mistake," ask yourself, was it? Or was it the shadow finally showing its face? In our last section, we uncovered the disturbing truth Carl Jung exposed about intentional betrayal, how it isn't just a moment of confusion, but a calculated move driven by the shadow. But what happens after the betrayal? What happens when the pain has already been delivered, and yet the manipulation still continues? This is where things get even darker. The systematic destruction of your reality. According to Carl Jung, some people don't stop at hurting you. They go one step further. They engage in something far more insidious, what Jung referred to as reality manipulation. It's not just lying, it's not even denial. It's a systematic distortion of your perception of reality. They twist facts. They rewrite the past. They plant doubt like seeds, then water them with charm or denial until you begin to second-guess what you saw, what you felt, even what you lived. And Jung discovered something truly sinister about this behavior. He called it the double victory, because in these cases, the perpetrator doesn't just cause harm, they then make you feel guilty for noticing it. Let that sink in. First, they wound you. Then they stand over the wreckage, tilt their head, and say, "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" Suddenly, you're no longer the victim. You're the problem. Guilt, the invisible leash. Carl Jung observed that this kind of manipulation, often recognized today as gaslighting, is not just emotional cruelty. It's psychological warfare. Its purpose to fracture your grip on reality, to dismantle your sense of self, to make you question your sanity. And the most powerful weapon in this war isn't rage or shame, it's guilt. Jung described guilt as an invisible leash. Once it's around your neck, you begin to walk backwards. You minimize your pain, you silence your voice. You start to think, maybe I overreacted. Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe I misunderstood what really happened. But this confusion, this paralysis, it's not accidental. Jung was clear it's intentional. It's designed to protect the perpetrator's fragile ego while keeping you emotionally destabilized and controllable. Why toxic people always come back? But here's what Carl Jung discovered that most people never see coming. Why do toxic people, those who have wounded you so deeply, so often come back? Why do they reappear in your life just when you're starting to feel okay again? Jung uncovered a disturbing pattern. These individuals don't just want to hurt you once, they want to keep you broken. Because according to Jung, your healing represents their greatest threat. Think about that. When you begin to heal, when you rise from the ashes of betrayal, it sends a message: their attack failed. You're still standing, still breathing, still growing. And that truth completely shatters the story they have told themselves about your weakness. Hatred feeds on control and healing is rebellion. Jung taught that hatred thrives on control. It feeds off predictability, off obedience, off silence. But when you heal, you disrupt that control. You become a mirror they can't bear to face because your strength exposes their failure. In Jung's words, healing becomes rebellion. It's not just recovery, it's a refusal to live in the prison they built. But here's the part that truly changes everything. The return, disguised as reconciliation. Jung observes something deeply unsettling, that people operating from the shadow, those filled with unprocessed hatred and resentment, often circle back when they sense you're moving on. But they don't come back with rage. They return wearing masks, concern, regret. Let's talk. Can we fix this? I miss what we had. And yet Jung warned these aren't genuine attempts at healing. They're strategic moves, calculated efforts to reopen your wounds and reassert psychological dominance. The goal isn't reconnection. The goal is to pull you back under control. Because to someone ruled by shadow, your healing isn't inspiring. It's infuriating. Jung's life-changing response: conscious power. So how do you respond? Do you match their manipulation with anger? Do you retaliate? Do you lash out to protect yourself? Jung says no. In fact, his answer is life-changing. He taught that the most powerful weapon you have isn't revenge. It's what he called conscious response. What does that mean? It means choosing clarity over chaos, truth over reaction, grounded presence over emotional explosion. Because here's the secret: you don't need to scream the truth for it to have power. Truth needs no drama, just presence. Carl Jung said that truth spoken calmly and clearly creates far more impact than dramatics. It doesn't just echo in the moment, it lingers. Because truth is difficult to argue with. It reveals, it shines, and it gives you the rare ability to walk away with your dignity fully intact. When you respond consciously, not with venom, but with strength, Jung said you interrupt the cycle. You stop the projection. You refuse to become the very thing that hurt you. And in that moment, you reclaim something sacred yourself. Your dignity can't be taken, only surrendered. Carl Jung observed that when someone harms you with contempt, gaslighting, and manipulation, they are not just challenging your emotions. They are declaring war on your spirit. But your power lies in not engaging at their level. According to Jung, your dignity cannot be taken from you. It can only be surrendered. And when you choose to hold your truth, to own your voice, to heal without hate, you win the kind of battle that leaves no scars, only growth. Closing, the unseen victory. So yes, the betrayal may have been deliberate. The wounds may have been sharp and strategic, but your recovery, that's yours. No one can take that. When you choose to emerge from pain with intention, to speak with truth, to love yourself with clarity, and to heal without becoming bitter, you create a victory so silent, so unexpected, that your adversaries may never even realize they lost. Thank you for staying with me on this journey into Carl Jung's wisdom. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Your truth matters, your healing matters, and your power comes from within.